Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
God damn it!
Noah, look, it wasn't more than that, okay? I was feeling vulnerable and...
How can you say that? Last night was so perfect.
Because it's true. And in time, you're gonna see it too.
Welcome to a brand new episode of The Pint, a pop culture podcast recorded under duress. I'll explain the duress in a second. My name is John.
And I'm Laura.
Julio Oliveira is one of my favorite podcasters out there. And here's a story about Julio. A couple years ago, Julio came on The Pint for the first time. And I don't know why I asked him to do this, but I asked him to do the Octagon with Chuck Norris. And Julio is kind of a cinephile. His show is very good. They talk about a lot of good movies, and he's got important opinions. They're bigger than Chuck Norris, I think. And I had him do the Octagon with me and Professor Joe. And I am a patron of Julio's show, The Contrarians, which is a fantastic show you should check out if you've never seen it or listened to it before. And they asked me for an episode to do, and I knew he really hated Chuck Norris, so I said, so I made him do Invasion USA. And the format of The Contrarians is every episode, every movie they do is 2 episodes. They do one in one kind of manner, and then they do another one. So they do 2 hours every time. So I made them talk about Chuck Norris more because I thought it was a funny joke. So go back to 2 years ago in 2023 during a live stream for The Cure, the annual fight against cancer that we participate in. And we were at the end of our segment, and I made a promise. I said, if somebody jumps in here and gives us one more big donation, I'll do 4 episodes that you pick. Now, this is 2 years ago. Julio donated a couple $100 and bought me for 4 episodes. One of them I didn't get around to till last year. Me and Lloyd did 1984. We still owe him 2 more. And then tonight is the result of the second one we're doing. And I say this is under duress because I couldn't tell if Julio was pulling my leg with this pick. The movie we're talking about tonight is called The Boy Next Door, and it's starring J-Lo. And not that we planned this out, but it's also celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. And I think after watching this and after making Laura watch this so we could do this episode, we now know that this wasn't a film that Julio actually liked, or he's a fan of J-Lo. Julio was trolling us, and this episode is being recorded, and the watching was done, as Laura put in her letterbox review, under duress. But that's enough foreshadowing for this episode. Let's talk about 2015's The Boy Next Door.
I'm ready to go in, Coach. Just give me a chance. I know there's a lot riding on it, but it's all psychological. Just got to stay in a positive frame of mind.
Laura, are you normally a fan of the, I guess, crazy stalker, crazy roommate, like back in the day, Fatal Attraction, Single White Female, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, like that personal connection where one person just isn't right? Are you usually a fan of those movies?
Not typically. I appreciate Fatal Attraction just for the absolute batshit craziness that she just does throughout the movie, but I can never get over that you're just making stupid fucking mistakes.
Yeah.
And you're just doing the wrong thing, and you're not doing anything to stop this. So it's hard for me to overlook the faults of the main characters, and it's just hard to enjoy because I'm just like, no, you're doing the wrong things.
Yeah, this one's chock full of that too. This one's chock full of that. We'll get into it. All right, so released on January 23rd of 2015, directed by Rob Cohen. Rob Cohen directed and wrote Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. He is the director of the first The Fast and the Furious film, so he started all that off. And he loves Vin Diesel so much, he also directed the first film, Triple X, that he did. Written by a woman named Barbara Curry, who was an assistant U.S. attorney in Los Angeles for nearly a decade for the Major Violent Crimes Unit. And she basically is a lawyer who wrote this story. She has done other things in Hollywood, but mostly as a producer. She was a supervising producer on She-Hulk, which was a show on Disney, obviously a Marvel show that revolved around an attorney, and a show called Bosch Legacy, which is a show on Amazon Prime, I believe. Filmed in and around Los Angeles, and this was a 23-day shoot between the fall of 2013 and the spring of 2014. Not a whole lot of exciting notations on this one, so let's get right into it. Let's talk about the cast.
Let's do it.
Hey, who the fuck are you? Huh? Who the fuck are you?
So another reason Julio may have been trolling me on this one, I don't know, because I know I've said it on the show before, but the star of this film is an actress who is probably more known in all reality for her real life persona, and that's the reason I don't like her.
Yeah, me too. Same reason. I do not like the person that she is. She just seems insufferable and entitled, and it really taints anything good that she may have done, which isn't really that much in my opinion.
No, I haven't seen many movies with her, and I never really care for them. So matter of fact, we'll talk about this movie. I didn't mind her in this movie, and it made me realize that it's not the actress, or the character, it's her. It's like her real life persona.
Yeah.
But Jennifer Lopez plays Claire Peterson. I don't buy for a minute that Jennifer Lopez's name is Claire in anything. She was in the one film that I actually do really like her in is a film called Out of Sight with George Clooney, and that is like 98% George Clooney. She was in The Cell, and she had a pretty big hit a couple years ago, a stripper movie called Hustlers. I remember when that was big. Ryan Guzman plays Noah Sanborn, playing a 19-year-old, but chill out, he was 27 at time of filming. He is a series regular on one of those shows that I've never seen an episode of, 911. He was in a movie that we did years ago, Richard Linklater's spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused, which I actually love, called Everybody Wants Some. And he was in the Gem and the Holograms film, which, if anybody remembers, that thing was like a mega fucking bomb. Ian Nelson. I'm sorry, Ian. I said Ian. Ian. I'm thinking
You can pronounce it however you want. It's your show.
It is my show.
Fuck you, Ian.
Ian Nelson plays Kevin Peterson. He is the son of the Claire Peterson character. He is on the Teen Wolf TV show. He was in the Hunger Games, and he was in The Judge with Robert Downey Jr. Terrible actor. Did you feel that? Was he bad, or was it me?
No, there was nothing. He was very flat and plain, and there is no way that you could ever convince me that he is the child of those two actors.
100%. Agreed.
Like, those two people, making a baby did not make that kid.
They didn't make that baby.
There's no, Latino in him whatsoever.
Nada. Well, remember, her name is Claire, so maybe she's not so...
maybe she's hiding her Latino underneath the Claire.
Undercover Latino.
Claire's a fat girl's name.
Claire is a fat girl's name. I don't like J-Lo, okay, I'll admit it, but she clearly is not a fat girl, and Claire's a fat girl's name. I agree with you. I'm glad you said that. We have to agree with John Bender every once in a while around here. John Corbett plays her husband, Garrett Peterson. He was on the television show Northern Exposure. He was in all of my big fat Greek blank movies. And he was in Tombstone. No little known fact about him I did not know. In 2020, he married Bo Derek. So
really,
in real life, he's married to Bo Derek.
Yeah. He was also a big part of Sex and the City, which I have seen Sex in the City, kind of shocks people sometimes, but I've seen Sex in the City so many times that, I can quote episodes. I've watched it probably 10 times over in my lifetime.
And he's one of, her, there's a couple...
She was engaged to him at one point. He was one of her, big, boyfriends, big, main character guys that she was with. Aiden.
Aiden. Okay, sexy.
Yes, very sexy.
Kristen Chenoweth plays Vicky Lansing, who is the best friend, the BFF of Claire. Mostly a Broadway actress, but she's in a ton of movies. She actually originated Glinda, who is a character from, well, obviously The Wizard of Oz, but she originated her in Wicked. She was in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown on Broadway. And since 2001, she has released 8 albums. She's very tiny. She's a very, very tiny little person.
Yeah, small lady. Yeah, she could have been a munchkin.
She could have been a munchkin. And something I noticed about this is I've seen her in a million things, and I mean, I'm not overly attracted to her, but she's an attractive woman. The haircut they gave her in this movie is fucking awful.
No, and it was like distractingly awful.
It was They gave her like a skater boy, goth kid, emo.
Like emo, hair. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was outdated in 2015. Like that wasn't even a hairstyle in 2015. That was more of like a 2005 haircut. So
it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. Hill Harper plays Principal Warren. He ran for ran for and lost the Senate race in Michigan in 2024 as a Democrat. Well, there it goes right there. He was in Steel, the Shaq DC character movie from the late 90s. For Colored Girls and the Tupac biopic, All Eyes on Me. And then just a couple more. Francois Chow plays Detective Chow. So Francois Chow plays Detective Chow. He was on Lost, one of my favorite shows of all time. The film Rescue Dawn, and in G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the cartoon that I grew up on. And if G.I. Gary is listening to this, he already knows. He voiced Quick Kick, one of the G.I. Joe characters, for that run. And then finally, Adam Hicks plays Jason Zimmer. He is the bully in the film that gets his head fucking caved in. He was in the 2006 film How to Eat Fried Worms. And he is also like a YouTube rapper.
Ew.
Gross.
A redhead YouTube rapper? Even as a redhead, we don't need that. We don't want that in our community.
doesn't work at all. Now, Laura, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
We start this movie off right off the bat, and we get this really weird, truncated little prologue that explains to us everything that has happened.
Yeah.
So, explain that little bit and what's happened so far in Claire's story. And then I have a question for you about something they show in the prologue, and I want to know how you felt about it.
Okay. So essentially, it begins with her running, and then we're supposed to know that she's thinking about all of her problems, and her husband cheated on her, but he feels really bad about it. He doesn't want to get a divorce, and her best friend is like, fuck him, leave him. And it's honestly, I wrote it in my notes, some of the worst exposition I have ever seen.
This movie really feels like a made-for-TV movie.
They don't even line up the dialogue with the mouths.
Yes, in that bit
20 seconds. It was so weird. I was just like, they're starting off on a terrible foot, and I wish it went upwards, but it just kind of plateaued from the beginning. But yeah, so essentially, she's kind of a single mom, separated from her husband, the father of her son, and he cheated on her, and she's sad about it.
So she is a teacher. They live in this nice house. He has now moved out. Her son is kind of like, if this movie was made 10 years later or 5 years later, they would have thrown in a line saying he was like mildly autistic, because that's kind of how,
yeah,
and I'm not being mean, but he's kind of really introverted, and, he's, aside from that, he's like got this terrible allergy. They talk about he needs to carry an EpiPen, which is going to be important. But what I wanted to ask you about was, because I noticed this right away, and I said to myself, this is going to come into play. There's a scene in the beginning, through all of this dialogue and exposition, where Kristen Chenoweth's character is walking with J-Lo's character through a barn with her arm around her, and she's like, saying like, fuck him, you're better than him. And there's an engine block suspended in the air in the farmhouse that they make it a point that you see in that scene. And I said to myself, this is how the boy next door is going to get killed after he goes nuts. Did you notice that or no?
See, I only noticed it on my second watch, because did we mention that I watched this 2 times?
Yeah, off air. Yeah.
Yeah. Watched this twice. I noticed it the second time. It really didn't stick the first time, but I think I was just distracted by how terrible and how much I was not looking forward to the rest of the movie, but
Yeah.
it's very obvious now seeing it. It's like smack dab in the middle of the screen.
As soon as I saw it, I went, there's no way this movie's not going to end in this barn.
Yeah.
It's not going to end with her dropping that engine on this fucking kid.
Yeah, just a randomly suspended, like, heavy piece of machinery.
Yeah.
Like, of course.
So who is Noah and why is he suddenly the boy next door?
He is the nephew of her next door neighbor, Bob, who is kind of a cute old man that's sickly. And Noah, his parents died a year before in a bad accident, and he moved in to help his uncle while he gets a bone marrow transplant.
And immediately we see that he is into Claire, right? Let's be honest. I don't like J-Lo, but here we have a woman in her late 30s, early 40s. She's very good looking.
Oh yeah, she's a beautiful woman. It's just her personality doesn't match her outsides.
No, yeah, she's in real life, she's a turd bucket.
Yeah.
But, we see that there's an attraction on his end, but then we also start to pay attention to the way she's looking at him. And again, he's supposed to be 19 in this, but he's in shape, good looking kid. And I think one of the biggest things that I thought about in this movie with his attitude was he's the total Eddie Haskell, right? He's like,
oh yeah.
He's like, I'm going to do everything you need me to do around the house. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be your son's best friend. He immediately ingratiates himself in with the son and kind of becomes like a bolsterer for the kids.
Within the first 30 seconds of meeting them, he is kind of inserting himself into their family. It was way too much familiarity way too quickly, which makes me uncomfortable because I need to know somebody for like a year before I give them a high five.
Right. Well, she gives him way more than a high five in a little bit. We'll get to that in a second.
She gives him a low five.
He gives her the low five, that's for sure. So they kind of, a little bit of time passes and he starts to, pop by for dinners, and every scene they show him in, he's fixing something. So he's up on the roof or he's replacing an alternator in a truck and he's having Kevin, the son, help him out. And she's kind of noticing all these things, and school hasn't started yet, so she's kind of got a little bit more time. And they also bond over what is to be one of the weirdest errors in a movie I've ever seen before, and I'm sure you thought of this too. They bond over the Iliad, Laura. And they talk about the Iliad quite a bit. It's her favorite book, and she teaches it in her class, and he seems to really like it, but you also have to wonder how much of it is him adapting to her likes, and maybe he learned about it really quickly. But Laura, is it even possible that he can give her a first edition of the Iliad? Wouldn't that have been written on sea scrolls or some shit?
Yeah, no, I looked it up. The Iliad came out in 8th century BC.
Yeah.
So at least that's what Google said. So I'm sure it's slightly accurate, but yeah, that's not a first edition of anything.
No. He comes to the house, he brings her a gift, and she's like, that's a first edition of the Iliad. And immediately I went, isn't the Iliad from the fucking before Christ?
Yeah.
How is this a first edition? Did he find it in the Dead Sea Scrolls? But yeah. And I also was reading some trivia about this movie and preparing for this episode. And that is the number one, people were Googling that like crazy after this movie.
Yeah.
Because they're all like, how could there be a first edition of the Iliad? Well, so they kind of start to become very friendly. And at one point she's going to go out on a blind date. By the way, with the biggest asshole on earth. I don't know why this guy was on a date with anybody. He just seemed so fucking angry. But before she goes on the date, she's very strangely looking at herself in a mirror in high heels and a slip.
Yeah, she has the sexiest pajamas.
Yeah.
I don't know any girl that sleeps in stuff like that. It's usually a big overstretched t-shirt with really ratty pajama pants. Who's doing that when they're by themselves? Nobody is sleeping like that.
So what does she catch a look at outside the window, Laura, in
Oh,
this
she
scene?
sees his butt. He is getting naked in his room, probably trying on sexy high heels also.
Yeah.
There, and she catches a glimpse, and instead of being respectful like one should and closing the window or not staring at him naked in his bedroom, she is full on like kind of like peering through like the sheer curtains, and then he's just like standing full front at the window like looking right at her.
Yeah. He does that thing in a movie where I don't think if I'm being watched right now, I have no idea. But in movies, people always just do that turnaround and like, cause he
Yeah.
knows. And then he goes to the window and he makes it a point. They don't show it, but he goes to the window, like his dong hanging out, and he's just staring back at her, and she's hiding behind. And this whole scene seems like it's taking place at like midnight, but then this is right before she goes on her date. She goes on this really terrible date with Kristen Chenoweth and her boyfriend, who, by the way, Kristen Chenoweth's boyfriend is Ben the soldier from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
He was definitely wearing jean shorts under the
jean
table.
shorts, yeah. I knew you'd get that. And the guy that she goes with is just a terrible dickhead, and seems to want to like push her buttons. It's very weird. So
yeah,
she
he
leaves.
doesn't seem to want to be there at all. I just want to say before we move away from the window looking scene,
Yeah.
she knows at this point that he is going to be a student at the high school that she teaches at.
Yes.
She
yeah.
knows this, and she's still trying to catch a peek. So you know what? Nobody deserves what he does eventually, but she is definitely not doing her best to prevent anything from happening.
Yeah, no,
Like,
she's
this-
certainly.
It's creepy that her as an adult woman is peeping on somebody so much younger. Like 18 is an arbitrary adult number. Like he is like 20 years younger than she is, and it's
Yeah.
She shouldn't have been looking at his butt was very nice, but she should have not been looking.
Yeah, she should definitely have had a little bit more couth.
She should have been a teacher and had some respect.
So she goes on this date, leaves because the guy just keeps pushing her buttons and he's being a dickhead. And again, this is the same night. She gets home. In movies, nights always seem to take much longer than my nights do. Like, I'll be asleep in an hour. Like, we'll finish this. I'll be asleep. But she goes home, and this date you assume must have started at 6 or 7. Now it's like 8, and he's like, he gets her over by saying, oh, I was trying to defrost chicken, and it's a nightmare, and, do you want to come over? And in my head, watching this as an adult, I'm like, say no. Like, don't go over you're already looking at his ass. Don't go over, because the odds are something is going to happen. And, I guess part of the story is that, like, she's in a vulnerable position. She's an older, not older, but she's a middle-aged woman whose husband had sex with somebody younger, and she's got a lot of, like, that stuff going on. But just don't make that decision. But she does. She goes over and she helps him cook dinner, and they, bond a little bit more. And then as she's going to leave, they just, they start to kiss. And this scene, granted, I didn't know how graphic it would be, and it's not really for a sex scene. It's not graphic.
No.
But what it is, it's uncomfortable because it's like it verges on rapey.
Yeah.
Where,
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's clearly, God, this is so delicate to talk about. She's saying one thing, but responding with another way. So and he's also not stopping. So she's saying, don't do this. But every time he'd kiss her in a different spot, she kind of like, let's go a little bit more. I'm watching this and I'm like literally thinking, man, I want this scene to be over. Cause I want them to get to the point where they just let go, because like it started off where I was like, oh, is it gonna go like violent or something? Cause I didn't know how this movie kind of went.
Yeah.
She gives in, and they have sex, and it's, it seems like full of passion and everything, but like you could tell if she has any sense whatsoever what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. First of all, there was resistance from her, but she also kept giving into it.
That's what I'm saying.
You could tell that she wanted it to happen.
Yes.
And because she wasn't leaving, she was like standing there. Like, yes, this is like a very hard thing to talk about, but she didn't do her best to leave, and you could tell she wanted it to happen.
Yes. She kept saying no with her mouth, but every time he would like touch her or whatever, she would like kind of let it in again, and they eventually end up like in bed, and
and then she did let it in.
And she totally let it in. Yeah. And by it, I mean his tongue, his fingers, and then eventually more.
Yeah, she got the downtown rub down.
She did. He played Hide the Pony with J-Lo, and they both won.
Got like the breast grabbing.
Yeah, he was like doing like a squeeze move, which I don't know. I wasn't taking notes at this point, but like if it worked, it worked.
She liked it.
She did like it.
Hey, Mikey, she likes it.
As soon as they wake up in the morning, well, she wakes up. She's kind of like, that classic movie, a mess, like on the bed. She kind of immediately realizes where she is and what she's done. He's off making like breakfast in bed. Their demeanors are totally different. Her demeanor is, oh, fuck, I fucked a 12-year-old. Yeah. I have to go. And now I have to figure out how this is not going to affect my life. And he is balls deep in love with her, right, Laura?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he brings her like orange juice and coffee on a tray, and she's like, last night was amazing. That was the best. And I don't think he said I love you yet, but like he starts that later on. But you could tell this kid is head over heels for this lady, and she's just like, oh, I fucked up real good right now.
Yeah. I didn't know what this movie was going to be about in terms of, I knew it was going to be about like obsession. But I thought maybe it was just like sexual obsession, but he is balls deep in love with her. That's it. That's all I want. I want a not fat girl named Claire who might be Latino, might not, and I want to live with her forever.
Yeah.
And so she leaves, she goes home, and she's like, look, this cannot happen again. Big mistake. Thanks for the downtown rubbing, but I gotta go. Let's never talk about this again. And that doesn't work for him, Laura, right? Like he doesn't think that's how he wants things to go. So from this point forward, he just starts to become more and more aggressive, really just like, what's the word? Translucent about what happened, where like he's playing a game with her. He's trying to get her to come back into like, let this happen again. But at the same time, Laura, the husband now is suddenly all around, right?
Yeah, like, it seems that after she fucks this childlike man, she decides, like, oh, people make mistakes. My husband just made a mistake. He had a full-on affair with a woman while we were married. So, you know what? Same thing. I should give him another try.
Even Steven.
Yeah, like, we're good. We're good.
So the husband starts to kind of come around again, and the boy next door, Noah, starts to kind of like see this and kind of like decide that the way he's going to play sides is by fucking around with the 15-year-old's brain, right? The son. He kind of takes him and says, look, some of the things he does with him, he takes him boxing. He starts to train him in boxing to the point where the kid gets so boxed out that he has a fucking allergy attack to boxing.
Yeah, is it asthma or is it an allergy attack?
I think it was supposed to be bees.
What is he allergic to?
I don't know, like physical confrontation?
Like adrenaline? Is he like just allergic to excitement? Is he just does he really suck that much that he can't even get excited about anything?
Yeah.
His face gets all like blotchy, and I would think, why not just make it asthma? It could have just been asthma.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. Noah saves his life. We see that the kid is being bullied at one point. Eventually, we'll kind of get there now. At school, Noah ends up literally kicking the shit out of the bully, like almost killing him. He starts to feed into the kid's head that like the father's a turd. Like where was your father? The kid has a very good relationship with his dad. It's proven early in the movie. They go on a camping trip and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's like, well, where was your dad for like almost a year? And he was off fucking another woman. He kind of takes advantage of the fact that he knows that the kid has a crush on a girl that works at a local, hardware store, which by the way, the girl that works at the local hardware store seems to me from this movie to be like one of those, I don't know, like she just seems like this really nice teenage girl. And then there's a scene later on where she's in bed with the boy next door, Noah. And I'm like, is that the same girl?
I
'Cause
couldn't tell. I wasn't sure. Was that the same girl that
Yes.
was hanging in the room? Okay.
Yeah. She went from like this kind of like shy and nice and sweet hardware store girl to like dick sucking machine. And I'm like,
Oh.
and he was doing that because he did it on purpose because that was Claire's son's date to the prom or whatever. And
Yeah.
he did it. He has sex with her with the window open, which Claire again starts to watch, but shuts the, yeah.
Yeah,
So
she's creepy in her own right. She's a creeping Claire.
she did not help the situation out at all.
No.
Now, Noah gets into her class. How does he do that?
He somehow hacked her email and like altered a recommendation slip for him to be in her class, even though technically due to his age and grade he shouldn't have even been in that class.
Yeah.
Like he does that wasn't it was kind of explained at the end, like how he could have possibly done it, but that was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
That like he writes like he would be an asset to the class, and she's like, I never wrote that, and then she's like, oh, I guess I did, trying to cover like up whatever might be happening.
She's in such a position that nobody can know. She can't tell her friend Kristen Chenoweth right away because she's the vice principal of the school.
Mhm.
She can't tell the principal of the school. She can't tell her husband. She can't tell her son. She is literally in like this position where he has all the power over her. And he just starts to abuse it. Like I said, he ends up eventually getting expelled from school for beating up the bully. But that's not what gets him expelled, right? He ends up, does he smack Kristen Chenoweth or something?
No, she goes to smack him.
Right,
and grabs her hand, and like he leans in and calls her a cunt or something like that. And then she's like, "You're expelled," even though I think the beating should have been grounds to
not only
him in the first
should-
place.
The beating should have been grounds, absolutely. But then how does she explain to the school board that, well, he called me a cunt after I tried to smack him? You probably shouldn't be smacking at him. But so as this movie's going along, he's becoming initially more and more kind of just antagonistic towards Claire and everybody in her life because he's trying his best to figure out how to get to win her over.
Yeah, and that is, every man knows that is the best way to win a woman over, is to
100%.
just fuck up her life at every single like prospect, like just completely decimate her so she has no choice but to grovel and come back to you.
100%.
I guess he is supposed to be a psychopath, but I just can't understand why that would be like, oh, this must be the best way, not like being nice to her and like being kind to her, right?
I got it right here in my notes. Just
Yeah.
fuck with women until they give in. It's right here.
Yeah, we love that so much.
Absolutely. It's a good plan. It's a really good plan. What are some of the other things that he starts to do that really kind of start to, I guess, push the line a little bit?
He sneaks into her classroom somehow, and this is after he's expelled, so he probably shouldn't even be on school grounds, but I guess considering that's not really high on his list of priorities, but he sneaks in, and apparently he took photos and video of them while they were having sex, so this, like, also telling us that this was very orchestrated on his part, that, like, he had, like, a setup, like, to take the video, and he, like, just set up, like, almost like they're party streamers, like, of, like, black and white images across the whole classroom, and then he's remotely printing out pictures that are just spewing out and filling up the floor of the classroom. And
she walks into her class and she sees these streamers of her getting banged from like behind, and it, like you said, they're everywhere. And she panically tells her class, "Hold on, I'm going to lock the door. I have a personal issue." And like she does this cleanup job. And then the principal shows up and, he's like, "Why is everybody locked out? Let me in." She lets him in. And of course there's one like right there, like hanging up that she sees, and she kind of body blocks it, but she manages to throw them all out. She eventually does tell, she might have already told at this point, she tells Kristen Chenoweth's character that I had sex with him and this is what happened. And now he's just fucking with my life. So they come up with a plan where because of the video angle, she's got to get a hold of this video because she's like, this video will fucking ruin my life.
Yeah.
So Kristen Chenoweth's character is like, okay, I'll drive your car and distract him. And then you go into his house, you break into his house, find like where his little lair is. Laura, he lives in Harry Potter's like little like thing, right? Like he lives
Yeah,
under
he
the
lives in, like, a
stairs.
little hovel. Like, I can't imagine that's the room in that big house that his uncle has that is the only place because it's in the basement. It's
Right.
some weird little like corner of the basement, and there's a dirty pillow and mattress on the floor, like he's some kind of like homeless guy that just kind of snuck in and sleeps down there. And it's just plastered with pictures of her sleeping and just pictures of her just going about her day that he's taken. And she finds his computer and it just has more stuff on it. And it's just real, like, it's creepy shit, but it's kind of comically so.
So we get the scene where where she's on the computer and she's deleting the files, but Kristen Chenoweth's like, he knows it's me, it's not you. He's coming back to the house, so she's trying to be fast. But then she notices a couple of files that make her think. A little bit earlier in the movie, the Garrett Peterson character, the father, takes Kevin out driving in his car, and they have this scary moment where the brakes don't work. In all reality, they're on this like winding California mountain road. They should have died. It's so dumb that they did not die because the kid's trying to be a badass to his father and driving really fast, and there's no way that car would not have flipped over with like the speed they're going with no brakes. It was just kind of dumb.
Yeah, and I also don't understand why the emergency brake was the last case resort.
Yeah.
Like, that should have been, the brakes aren't working, emergency brake.
Right.
That shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. No, well, we had to have that like harrowing moment. We see a kind of like a file about the brakes for his car, and then we see a file for brakes for an '06 Caravan. Now, I'll jump ahead here. A little bit later, she investigates into his parents' accident, and same thing. They were driving. Apparently, the Noah character really loved his mother, but his father, for some reason, did they say his father was a cheater or something?
Yeah, he does. I wanted to say something about that because it doesn't make sense. Because it said his parents died in an accident. And in the flashback we get of the accident where the brakes obviously failed, it's his father and his mistress. And he even says his father and that my cheating father and his whore or something like that.
Oh, so I missed that. Okay.
The father and the mistress in the car, what happened to his mom? Like, that was definitely a continuity issue.
I missed that dialogue because as they're driving, it's a well put together, seemingly a little bit younger than the father woman, and she's like holding her skirt up, and I'm like,
yeah, she's like, ooh, look at my leg.
And I'm thinking it's the mother, and I'm like, oh, these two still have fun. These two.
At first I was like, good for them.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the mistress. Okay, so
that was the mistress.
All right. Okay. So maybe the mother died. I don't know. I missed that dialogue. But I
don't know what happened there.
We now have a pretty good idea that he's attempted to murder Claire's husband, and he has murdered his father and mistress. Claire ends up getting out of there after deleting all the files. We have a jump scare moment where she runs into the old man. He's like, "Why are you in here?" And she's just like, "Ah!" And she runs out.
I'm surprised he didn't just fall down dead at that. Like, I thought he was going to have a heart attack and keel over. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Uh-oh. He pooped his pants. So she goes back. She gets back to her house. And then we eventually kind of see that Noah has taken Vicky, the Kristen Chenoweth character, and he's brought her to her farmhouse, right? He's got her tied up, and he's kind of, I can't remember, is he questioning her? Like, is he asking her?
He's kind of antagonizing her.
Yeah.
I don't think he's really trying to get information out of her, because it seems like he kind of knows what's going on, and he has all the information that he needs. He's just fucking with her because she yelled at him. Like, he's saying, like, you don't like bullies, I don't like being bullied, you bullied me. Like, when she was yelling at him, and then maybe when they were fucking with him with like the whole car thing. So he's just completely turning this into he's the victim here and they're the bad people. Right. So has her all tied up, and he's like, fuck you. Like, and her eyes are just, cause like her mouth is covered, but you can just see the absolute terror in her eyes.
Yeah. And he's clearly beating her up a little bit too.
Yeah.
And he's also made like a stitched together voice sentence of hers so Claire calls, and he uses it like a recording to say, like, Claire, come on up, I need to see you at my family's farm, right? Like he plays something like that.
I wasn't sure if like he forced her to record that.
It sounded to me like it
Or
was
if
put
he,
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like, if
Like,
that is so, like, when did he have time to do something like
he
that?
spent 3 hours listening to recordings of her going, "Oh, please just say the word call, for fuck's sake. I gotta splice that in there. Come on. Everybody says that word at least once a day." So Claire decides to go up there, and she shows up at the farm. And as she's looking through the house, she finds Vicky, but it's not a good ending for Vicky. Vicky is like jammed into like a closet.
Yeah, like J-Lo gets to the house to find Vicky, and the cat scares J-Lo, and somehow that causes Vicky to fall from somewhere up high, which I didn't understand, like, what the point of that was, and like how, like, did he like expect that to happen? Like, was he like, oh, the cat's gonna get her and she's gonna like get this jump scare? Like, it was just kind of,
he's like, bonus jump scare.
Yeah.
Vicky's throat has been slit. She's dead. So Claire's kind of freaking out. And Claire starts to kind of, go through the house, and she ends up eventually in the big barn area. But who's there? Who, because he tricked them into coming up as well.
It's her husband and her son who, like, he was like, oh, I'm working on Vicky's tractor. And they're like, we're going to a car show. Like a car show. I don't know any car shows that happen at nighttime, but he gets them to come fix a tractor with him instead of going to a car show somehow. Like, and he's like, just come over, just come here. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And they do.
I found it weird too that like John Corbett's character, the husband, like you would think that this guy, just being a person on Earth with senses, would kind of get that this kid's a little off. Like, yeah. Like, cause he, again, it's the Eddie Haskellness of it. It's like when someone's acting like that much of a good guy, they're probably not a good guy.
Yeah.
Well,
like even in the beginning, Vicky, she says to her, she's like, there's something off about that kid. Like after they have like the barbecue in the beginning, and like, yeah, so like she noticed something, but I guess it wasn't like enough to really do much to prevent anything from happening. But
I think
everybody else is just like, oh, like what a nice guy, and it's just like, yeah.
J-Lo's swollen vulva like clouded her mind, but like everybody else, and John Corbett doesn't get it, but he's got them now both, and they're kind of like chained up, and he's obviously been beating up both of them. So she shows up, Laura, kind of walk us through all this like action here. Like he's gone off the rails. Yeah.
So she goes into the barn and sees that her husband is tied up to a ladder. Like his hands are over his head, and he's like tied to one of the rungs. Obviously his face is all fucked up. He's been beaten up. And then she turns around, and her son is also tied up with his hands over his head, and the rope is in a vice.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and when she's trying to free her son, it's like she's never seen a vice before and doesn't know how one works. Like she's taking it and kind of like, instead of, twisting it like every single person in the world knows how to do with the vice, she's like kind of like just like touching it and trying to pull it apart or something.
There are
like that's gonna help.
There are no vices in the first edition of the Iliad.
No, they did not have that in 8th century BC.
No.
But so essentially, like he like the dad's trying to do what he can from like being tied up to the ladder, and he kicks him, and then he gets punched and knocked out again. And then Noah just starts going after the kid. He's like, oh, like we were going to run away together, and I was going to take Kevin with us, but now fuck Kevin. Kevin can't come with us anymore. It's just going to be me and you. So she's just trying to be like, no, like Kevin's not like his father. He can come with us. Like trying to like,
right.
Like reduce like the thing, and like, so like to give time for Kevin to try and wiggle the rope out of the vice, who he also could have spun the vice. Like he could have used his arms to like kind of like loosen the vice a little bit. This
family does not know about vices.
They're fucking stupid. And so she's just trying to be, and he's like, oh, like we're gonna have this perfect life together. We're gonna run away together. And he's like, you can trust me. And then like you see, oh, like at some point she hits him with a crowbar or something, like whatever. It was a lot of stuff was going on, but you see that she's holding her son's EpiPen.
We knew this was coming. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, like, Claire, you can trust me. And she's like, yeah, but you can't trust me. And she stabs him in the eye with the needle, which
Right in the
was
fucking eye.
the second of the two parts of this movie that I liked. And I'm sure you could figure out what the other part of the movie that I liked was, which comes up very soon. So, like, he's just, like, standing there with a fucking EpiPen and, like, I think the son gets free at this point, or, like, the dad gets free. Like, apparently, like, the ladder is being held together by nails.
Yeah, he pulls like a rung off of it, like the dowel comes apart.
Yeah,
he
it
pulls
was
that off and
weird.
gets free. Yeah,
The dad gets shot, and she runs over to him and like sticks her thumb into his eye, and
yeah.
you get like the eye squirt, like the eye, like that was my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, there was some good thumb and eye action here.
Yeah, and like just like the noise it makes, like the squelch of like the eye, like. And then he's about to go like shoot the kid or something, like he's about to attack the kid. I forgot exactly how he was going to do that. And then she kind of like gets him to turn around, and then the engine comes back into play. The engine that we talked about at the beginning.
He says something about being a hero. Like, he looks at himself as the hero in the story.
Yeah, he thinks of himself like to go back to the Iliad, everything that he is saying about the Iliad, you realize that's how he feels about himself.
Right.
Like, he's this hero that like nobody is respecting. Nobody realizes that he's the center of all of this. Like, he's the good guy.
J-Lo doesn't know how a vice works, but she figures if I pull this rope, that engine's coming down.
Yeah, she knew that was going to happen.
And that engine is like 10 feet up in the air. And so he's standing right. He's got that Wile E. Coyote fucking target. He's right there. And she pulls the rope, and the block just drops on him and fucking just decimates him, destroys him. And then we get the family, and they all come together and they're holding each other. And then I was actually, as I'm watching this movie, I didn't want any more of this movie, but I was hoping there would be like a 1 year later where we could see that maybe like, it would have been like maybe a nice little epilogue where you learn that like, yes, they're on good terms, but the husband and her decided that they couldn't be together because obviously they both had wandering feelings, and maybe like people pay for the consequences. And no, it's like a universal horror film where once the engine kills him, they huddle together and it just fucking ends.
Yeah. I want to know, does she tell the cops like, yeah, this dude I fucked started stalking me? Like,
that's what I thought. That's what I thought, is that for this to kind of let this, like, she's losing her job. There's so much. Yeah. Because even if she didn't completely erase his computer, you know that he was smart enough to have other files. It's coming out somehow. Like, he probably had some failsafe that, like, if he didn't log into his email by 8:00 Monday morning, then that video went to everybody in town. I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, and just because you empty the trash, like, okay, she, like, at first I thought she was just going to delete it and put it into the computer trash and be like, come on, fucking idiot, like, it's still going to be there. But she does empty the trash. Any computer forensic person worth their salt can get stuff that's from an emptied trash. Like, it's not gone forever when you do that. It's just, like the typical everyday person can't find it again, but they can. And I'm sure, like, when they go down into his little like weird basement hovel and see all of the pictures of them sleeping together plastered all over the wall, she's kind of fucked after that because she had sex with a student.
She's essentially the hero of this movie. Meanwhile, she did something very, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's a lot of movies where our protagonists have done things that are not savory. Oh, yeah. We want her to be the hero in the end. And that's what kind of, it doesn't really work because, yes, he's a psychopath, but she should have just never gone over his house. She should have never kissed him, touched him, let him.
They shouldn't have eaten a half defrosted chicken. Like, even if they cooked it afterwards, that chicken is not good to eat.
Do you think that chicken made him crazy and made her fuck him? Maybe that's what happened.
Maybe like a half defrosted and then cooked again chicken just like is filled with like
tryptophan
endorphin.
times 1,000.
Like, it just makes you super fucking horny and just gotta fuck the first thing that you see.
This ain't Thanksgiving. I'm not sleepy. I need to fuck. That would have been a great fucking sequel, as if it was the trial where she's like, I think it was It's the half-eaten defrosted turkey chicken debate that's been going on for years. I should never have done that. He went nuts, and I couldn't do anything but sit on his dick.
Yeah, I couldn't help it. It was the frozen chicken defense.
The frozen chicken defense of J-Lo. I saw a great meme the other day that made me laugh so hard because, you know, they're talking about right now, like in like some of the tabloid type stuff that like Ben Affleck is spending a lot of time with Jennifer Garner again. Like, even though she has a boyfriend, they're like on good terms. And the meme was just, does Ben Affleck know anybody that's not named Jennifer? I thought that was fucking great.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. All right. 2015's The Boy Next Door, celebrating or not celebrating, most likely its 10th anniversary. Let's talk about the box office.
Show me the money.
Just looking good, but I think I'm taking too long.
Back to the spot for a Glock. I took a loss over floss, but still got a knock. Money!
All right, so the top 5 films between January 23rd and 25th of 2015. Number 5, for the third time, someone in his life was taken, and he was going to find out who did it. Liam Neeson, Taken 3. It had been out for 3 weeks. It made $7.4 million. Number 4, I don't know what this movie is, but I bet you it's a rom-com of some sort. Out for 2 weeks, $11.3 million. The Wedding Ringer, not Singer, Ringer.
That sounds familiar to me. I think, was that a Kevin Hart movie?
Maybe.
I don't know. It sounds familiar.
Number 3, it made $12.2 million, out for 2 weeks. The first in a series of films where the third one just came out recently about a cartoon bear, Paddington.
Oh, Paddington in Peru.
That's right. This was Paddington 1.
I've never seen any of the Paddington movies, but I've heard very good things about them. They're supposed to be very good movies.
I've heard the second one is literally considered like a classic. I've never seen any of them.
They talk about it in The Unbearable Weight of... Oh, it's that Pedro Pascal Nicolas Cage movie that it's...
I've never seen that. Yeah. The Unbearable
they
Weight
talk
of
about
Massive Talent.
Yes. They talk about how great Paddington 2 is like a few times in that movie.
Yeah, I've heard it's really good.
That's where I heard that Paddington was really good. That's where I'm getting my information about Paddington.
Me too. Same thing. Well, or at least I've heard it secondhand.
Yeah.
The Boy Next Door opened at number 2, $15 million. I should say that it was on a budget of 4, so it made its money big time right away.
Yeah.
And the number 1 film in America that week opened 5 weeks prior. $65 million was American Sniper. And The Boy Next Door, if it was the type of movie that could have had a sequel, it would have, because it was made for $4 million. It did 35 domestically, 17 internationally, for a total of $52 million. If you had asked me just because I had only heard of this movie and knew nothing about it, I would have said, oh, that was a bomb. No, it was not a bomb.
Yeah.
This movie made a fuck ton of money. I think I read somewhere, I know I saw something about it somewhere that said that I think it was at least for the weekend that it came out, it might have been surpassed, but it was the highest grossing movie with 2 Latin American leads, because Ryan Guzman is Latin. Again, we joke about J-Lo. Yeah. He kind of looks a little bit less Latin. J-Lo clearly is Latin, and, we joke about the Claire thing, but he's a Latino as well. And I don't know if it still is, but at one point it was the highest grossing opening for a film starring 2 Latinos. So,
oh wow.
With all the stuff we joke about, got to give it credit for that at the very least. And she produced it, so she made a ton of money on that. And she probably bought Ben Affleck something nice that he absconded with when he left her for the second time.
Yeah, when he had pay off all of his his alimony or something.
Yeah. All right, let's rate this thing.
Now! What's it gonna be, Doc? Huh? What's it gonna be?
Okay.
0 to 5. 0 to 5. 0 being the worst thing ever. 5 being the best thing ever. Quarter and half scale optional. I'll go first. I'll leave Laura for last. Same thing. Fatal Attraction is a good movie. Single white female, decent movie. There's a lot of these movies in the 90s that were about like these, kind of like relationships where somebody's obsessed or somebody's not clearly playing with a full deck of cards. And you don't realize it too late. Most of those movies have some really memorable scenes. Fatal Attraction, the line, "I will not be ignored," is probably every married man's like fucking nightmare. Or probably what keeps a lot of married men away. That movie probably has saved a lot of marriages from in all honesty, bet. her boiling the bunny, her taking the daughter on the roller coaster. There's some
Yeah.
really memorable things in that movie. This movie doesn't attain those levels right off the bat. Like, look, again, I'm not the moral majority, but yes, Michael Douglas's character is a married man, but he does something awful with another fully grown, developed woman, kind of causes havoc. And, you know, even at the end of that movie, you're rooting for him, but he's done a bad thing. In this one, you've got a teacher. So not only an adult woman, but a teacher.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to be talking about like somebody, you know, and we see these stories all the time. I do all the time, you know, like teacher sleeps with 12-year-old student, teacher sleeps with this. It happens. Like, so it's ripped from the headlines, I guess, but we're supposed to, I guess, kind of feel bad for her, you know, as these things start to pile on. And I think they try to do that in the screenplay by, you know, making John Corbett's character, you know, well, he was a cheater. And yes, that's not cool, but it doesn't mean it should drive you into the arms of a kid that's 19 years old, living next door to you, and who is going to be involved in your life. Again, I'm not being the moral majority, but it just doesn't give you a lot of setup to really feel for her character. And then, like we talked about, like, there's no comeuppance, or at least we don't get to see anything play out at the end of this. I didn't want this movie to be longer. It's an hour and a half long. Another 10 minutes where maybe it shows how, like, this not only, like, cost Kristen Chenoweth's life and, you know, all this other thing, but maybe, like, see how it affected her marriage. Doesn't get back together. She loses her job. And, you know, there's a movie, and I'm going to spoil a little bit here, but it's an older movie, but there's a movie called Flight with Denzel Washington I like a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's a movie about, he's an airline pilot who ends up saving a lot of people from an airline disaster, but they find out that he was drunk at the time. And it's all about the trial. Like, yes, you did manage to save these people. You did this maneuver that nobody could do, but you also clearly put them in danger at the beginning. And that movie doesn't end cleanly. Like, there are some nuances there where you have to realize that the character you're following is not the hero of the story. And they try to make him, the Noah character, such a nut job that in effect they make her the hero, but she's not. She's not. The beginning, the little prologue as to how we got there, along with the little weird like voice not matching up, it's awful. The dialogue in this movie is not great. And I think I brought up all the bunny boiling and all that stuff because there's not a moment in this movie that's as memorable as any of that.
No.
So it pretty much fails on most levels. I wasn't totally unentertained watching it. I was interested to see. He's good. I give Noah Sanborn, the Ryan Guzman credit. I liked his performance because he is just clearly like, he just doesn't give a fuck about what happens. He just wants her and he's going to be as in your face about it as possible. But that does not save this. I would probably say this is a 1.75. I can never imagine watching this again. And, it really is unmemorable. And that's, to me, doing a podcast, hundreds of episodes, I feel like I can remember something of most of the movies we talked about. And in like 2 years, I'll be like, oh, what the fuck? Oh, she fucked a young guy. I remember that scene. He grabbed her boobs. He twisted her boobs while he was banging her. I remember that. And that's only because I'm a pig. So Laura, what do you think?
So I guess I wasn't really shy about saying that I did not like this movie from the beginning, but essentially pretty much what you said. Like, I wanted to see some punishment for her. Like, what if the roles were reversed? If it was a male teacher, like, fucking a 19-year-old girl, this movie, like, it would have just been like, that's disgusting. That's completely awful. Like, so why aren't we expected to think that what she's doing is completely awful? Like, it's gross. And like, he's a student. Like, I don't think he should have been going to high school anyway as an almost 20-year-old. Like, you go to night school and finish up your degree there. Like, you don't go to like regular high school, but that's kind of beside the point. I was shocked when I found out this was written by a woman. Like, the first time I watched this, the first of the 2 times I watched this, like, me and Vinny were talking about it. I was like, I am 100%. There is no way this movie was written by a woman. A woman wouldn't write this. Like, and then he looks it up, and sure fucking enough, it was written by a woman, and I was completely shocked, and I'm still like kind of like, ooh, like how could a woman produce this? Like, not saying that like all women have to be talented and like, but come on, like, like it's almost like a betrayal to the gender. But I had to watch this twice because I couldn't absorb enough of it the first time. Like sometimes, like when I'm doing the shows with you, I do like to watch them twice just so I make sure I don't forget things, because I am a little scatterbrained from time to time. So like, but honestly, this is the first movie that I've done for you that I'm like, nope, did not like that. Every other movie, like I've been like a big fan of for the most part. Like I can't think of anything that like I haven't liked that we've talked about. But yeah, I gave this a 1-star rating on Letterboxd because I thought like 1.5 was too high. But I think on the scale, I'll give it a 1.25 because I did like the eyeball scene.
Okay.
And I also agree, Luis Guzman, it was not Luis, was it Luis Guzman? Luis Guzman?
Ryan Guzman.
Right. Okay. No.
Luis Guzman's
I want to see this movie with Luis Guzman, actually.
It would have been more appropriate age-wise, for sure.
Yeah. He did do a very good job at being very antagonistic, and he does have like the creepy little smile, and you just want to like punch his little fucking face like when he's like doing that. But honestly, everything else about it, like the house is beautiful, and that's the only other positive thing that I can think about saying about it. But yeah, so I'm gonna go 1.25, like giving it like just for the EpiPen in the eye and the thumb in the eye. I like eyeball trauma. I'm a big fan of eyeball trauma.
Yes, well, this does have some good eyeball trauma.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it tipped the scale a little bit for me. So I'll give it 1.25.
All right, well, Julio, there you go. We did it. Everybody out there, if you've never checked it out, check out Julio's show, The Contrarians, where they take movies that are rated very high on Rotten Tomatoes or very low on Rotten Tomatoes, and then on their first of 2 episodes for that movie, they talk about them kind of like along with how the rating went. It's not real. It's they kind of talk about it like very highly or very lowly, and then in the second half, they give their actual opinions. It's a very unique show, and it's a very good show, and we love those guys over there. Secondly, the Manster is going to be taking a few weeks off. He's got some stuff to suss out in his life. Everything's okay. I've had a couple people ask me. You could reach directly out to him if you know him on social media or whatever, but it's all good. He's just kind of fallen behind on some stuff, work life, personal life. So I kind of told him, don't worry about the podcast for a little while, because if you know the Manster, you know he's ultra prepared. When we do these things, he takes these incredible notes, and he puts a lot of effort into it. So I said, go ahead and just take some time off. We'll be coming at you with episodes with all different guest hosts like Laura here and other Pint insiders and good folks. So we're going to be having a good time over the next couple weeks. But Manster will be back fairly shortly. You know where to find us. Go to Instagram at The Pint Pop. YouTube, we have a YouTube channel, The Pint Pop Culture Podcast. And we come out weekly on anywhere that you can get your podcast. Check us out. Got some good episodes coming up. Laura, thank you for stepping in and doing a film that was not Shaun of the Dead or Pacific Rim or something that you normally love. Thank you for coming in and talking a very kind of J-Lo film with me. I appreciate you.
Of course, I'm always happy to be here, even if you do put me through some torturous situations.
Oh, yeah. All right, until next time, see ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!